against both the clock and the water because more rain is in the forecast. This is the start of the rainy season in Thailand. Rescue crews say it may take up to 4 more days to get everybody out. CBS News correspondent Ben Tracy is in Chiang Rai tracking the latest developments. He joins us now from outside the hospital where those 4 members of the team were taken. Ben, what do we know about their condition?
Well, we don't know much about their condition except that they did arrive here at the hospital late last night. 4 people rescued from the cave. One interesting update, though, we are reading in Thai media this morning that they're saying that one of the people that was rescued from the cave yesterday was actually the 25-year-old coach. So that would make 3 boys who were rescued plus the coach. That may seem odd that the coach was one of the first people to come out, but we have been told for days now that he was in perhaps the worst shape of anyone inside. And that's because early on in this ordeal, apparently he gave the boys all the food and water that he had on him when they first went into the cave, before they were found by the rescuers. So he apparently had been suffering from malnutrition and was not in good shape. So that appears that he is one of the people who has come out. In terms of their condition, those boys and the coach will now be evaluated here at this hospital for the next 3 to 5 days. This is also where the young boys will be reunited with their families, because when they came out of the cave, there was very little time. From the minute they walked out of the cave to when they got on those helicopters was less than 2 minutes. So their families have not been able to spend much time with them. That will now happen here at the hospital. Brooke?
Ben, and we know the second attempt is supposed to be happening or about to happen. What do we know about that?
Yeah, so the operation begins again this morning. They will go in, try to bring out another group of boys from the cave. The reason there's a bit of lag in the time on this operation, they had told us last night it would be about 10 to 20 hours before we might see another group of boys emerge from the cave. The reason for that is they basically have to go back into this cave and replace all the oxygen tanks along the evacuation route. The way that this works is as they're coming out of the cave, there are canisters strategically placed so they can replace their oxygen. So if something goes wrong and they have to be in the cave longer than they planned, there is ample oxygen there to keep everyone alive. So they had to go in and replace all of those, then get the divers on that long journey that takes about 6 hours back to where these boys are. Obviously, there is some time there where they work with the boys about what they're going to do to get them out of the cave, and then begin the long journey back to the mouth of the cave again. So this is why officials here have said this might take place over the course of 2 to 4 days. It's a very long and labor-intensive process.
And Ben, it looks pretty sunny there in Chiang Rai. This is the start of the monsoon season. The weather report isn't great for today, but how has the weather so far been in the couple hours the sun's been up?
Yeah, you know, so far it's just kind of cloudy, and you look in the distance and you see some clouds that look like we might have rain today. It's rare this time of the year here to have a day where you don't have rain. They did get lucky for about 3 days in a row. It was abnormally dry here, which is why they have taken this window of opportunity to try to get these boys out of the cave. But as you say, those monsoon rains are back. In the last 24 hours, we've had several downpours. What they're concerned about is that if we get a day or 2 of sustained monsoon rain, those would likely flood the cave again. And if you flood this cave again, that means you cut off the rescuers' access to these boys. They could be stranded where they are, and the very small piece of real estate that they're currently on could get even smaller as those floodwaters rise. So they feel like this really is a race against time. It really is a race against the weather, and they're hoping that today they will have at least four more out, which would mean that they have more than half of the people who were stranded there in the cave free.
And best you can describe that real estate. It's a long way. It's not wet the whole way down with this level of water. There could be more water pouring in that would make the dive harder. How should we understand what that space looks like?
Yeah, so what we're told is they had found this kind of dry, elevated piece of land. That's where they have been huddled for 16 days now, essentially. But once they begin the journey out of the cave, our understanding is that there are parts that are still very flooded, and it's usually those narrow passageways. Imagine if you're walking in a cave, or you're going on a hike and you go up a steep incline and then you go down a steep decline. Now imagine if that's inside a cave where you have rock above you and then fill it all up with water. That is basically what they're trying to swim through to get out of this cave. But we are told that once they get to a certain point, it's pretty much dry land from there and they can walk much of the way. And that is because they have pumped so much water out of this cave the last couple of days, upwards of 35 million gallons of water. So certainly those efforts have paid off. That's part of why we also saw yesterday that this first rescue operation went much quicker than they had told us it would. They had said it might take 11 hours to get the first 4 boys from their location to the mouth of the cave, and we saw the first 2 come out in less than 8 hours. So they're ahead of schedule. They're hoping to repeat that again today, but obviously a lot can still go wrong. So there is a lot to focus on here.
Okay, Ben Tracy in Chiang Rai, thanks so much. We'll be watching your reporting in the hours ahead at CBS this morning, Monday morning. Thanks, Ben. Okay, I want to bring in Dave Sears. He's a former Navy SEAL. He joins us now by phone from Washington. Dave, when you hear what the situation is there and what the cave is like, what are the biggest concerns, the biggest threat in your head?
Well, really, it's going to be beating the rains. So you're trying to get out under the most favorable conditions you can. And I believe the reason they're able to move these kids out is because a lot of the journey trek through the cave is above water, and they don't have to dive the whole thing. So they're either wading them and floating them at portions, and they're able to walk large portions. If that cave gets flooded up again with the rains, then you're talking total dive to get them out, which is just almost unsustainable for the kids. It took 6 hours for experienced divers to knock it out.
A pretty considerable break between the last rescues, which were completed now, 14 hours ago. Talk about what these crews would be doing in these intervening hours. Obviously, they want to do this as quickly as possible. They need this time. Why do they need this time?
Right, but they need this time to replenish all either the oxygen tanks or the compressed air tanks, whatever they're using, or nitrox tanks, whatever they happen to be using to get air underwater and in the cave. So imagine this is over 2.5 miles of cave that they have to go through, and there's certain portions where they have to dive down, so they're going to need that supplemental oxygen or supplemental air, and they've utilized all that. So if you're one of the rescuers coming in, you have to have the tanks that I'm seeing that they're wearing are about 40 pound or 80 cubic foot tanks that weigh about 40 pounds or so full, give or take a little bit. Well, they have to not only bring in their own in order to dive, but then they have to carry in spares so that they can have supplemental oxygen for the kids that are coming out. So they have to redo that entire 2.5 miles of cave system with all these support systems in place. So that's all been utilized to get 4 out. They'll likely have to take another break somewhere in there to replenish all that stock again.
We've heard reports that perhaps most of these young men age 11 to 16, and we've seen the pictures after 2 weeks in that cave. They aren't in great physical condition, and many or most of them cannot swim or cannot swim well. They're going through this very treacherous dive, granted with the support of 2 expert divers. But if you're one of those expert divers trying to help these very novice divers, swimmers through this, what are your main concerns? What do you try to do to help that situation? How do you go about what seems like a very challenging first dive for someone who's never put on a scuba mask?
Right. So your first concern is that you have constant air, right? That's the largest one we want to worry about. So that's mitigated somewhat by this full face mask that they're going to wear. And they can't, essentially, it's very difficult for them to take off or it to be inadvertently hit or a mistake made as it rubs against something and it comes out like a normal mouthpiece might. So that face mask is going to keep them air. That's what they have to have on them is air. The swimming part, you can use different buoyancy pieces and different life jackets that are inflatable, and you can inflate and deflate to adjust it and help just kind of push the kids along or let them walk on the bottom. So your big concern is going to be making sure they have air the entire time, and that if something goes wrong, you're ready for the contingency. If they do lose it, if the air supply hose gets cut or snagged on a rock, that you're ready to react to that. You only have, less than a minute without air for most of these kids is going to put them unconscious. So you have to react quickly but calmly and move them through the cave system.
Okay, former Navy SEAL Dave Sears joining us. Thanks so much, Dave. BBC reporter Jonathan Head has been following the cave rescue story from Thailand, and he filed this report detailing the progress so far and the unique challenges involved in the mission.
It began with more divers and air tanks going in and all other non-essential vehicles being sent out. A daring and complex rescue was underway. Governor Narongsak Osotanakorn, who commands the operation, described it as D-Day. Conditions will never be better, he said. After their dramatic discovery on Monday, the boys have been fed and treated by an army medic on the rock shelf where they'd been forced to retreat by rising water. They were judged fit enough to make the journey, though none has ever dived before. It involves 2 divers swimming with each child, who's tethered to the diver in front. They follow a previously laid guide rope to help over difficult terrain and poor visibility. The narrowest part of the route is less than 40 centimetres wide. The boys are helped through by the diver in front before resting on a rocky outcrop and then continuing. As the light outside faded, the sight of flashing lights and the sound of helicopters told us at least some of them were out. They were then flown to the city of Chiang Rai. Well, this is what all of those who've been involved in this operation have been waiting to see. We saw 2 ambulances go into this hospital earlier. That's another. The boys are coming out. Then Governor Narongsak made this announcement. After 16 days of waiting, today we were able to see the faces of the wild boars, he said to cheering journalists, referring to the nickname of the boys' football team. The 4 who were brought out today were described by one rescuer as doing remarkably well. They hope to get the remaining 9 over the next 24 hours.
Okay, we're going to have much more on the situation from Thailand. Rescue efforts still underway. For now, a short break. You're streaming CBSN.
Want real news right now? We've got the app for that.
Welcome to CBSN. We are streaming live.
Stream live breaking news anywhere you go with CBSN. Key interviews, revealing documentaries, and original reporting you can't get anywhere else.
This is a CBS News special report.
Download the CBS News app on your phone. tablet, your smart TV, even your game console. Or go to cbsnews.com, just hit live. CBSN, CBS News, always on.
600 miles on foot from the edge of Antarctica through to the South Pole itself. We are going to survive only on renewable energy.
It's an act of taking the responsibility and the call to action in relation to climate, in relation to the environment.
I'm taking a fearful battering today from all sides.
I can't imagine how much pain that man is in. All it takes is that 1 degree too far and you can die.
If we can survive out there only on renewable energy in the most hostile place on Earth, people can make a difference.
Rescue divers in Thailand are getting back in the water. It's Monday morning already in Thailand, and they're hoping to rescue more members of that Thai soccer team stuck in a cave for more than 2 weeks. Already 4 members of that soccer team have been rescued. It's a very difficult mission for a number of reasons. We want to discuss a bunch of them with Brent Clevenger, who joins us now by phone from Gastonia, North Carolina. He's the president of Sink or Swim Scuba. And Brent, what we understand is that each of these young men is being assisted by 2 divers as they go through this very narrow cave. And I've been curious whether this is kind of an established rescue technique or if this sounds like an ad hoc measure specific to the situation that the rescuers there came up with.
I believe this would be an ad hoc technique. I don't think anything like this could set a precedent. So I just don't know of anything that's happened like this before that they would need a technique for this.
And when you're doing a rescue dive like this, what are the main concerns and issues that you're trying to deal with to get through it safely?
Well, as I understand it, the conditions are very difficult. There's strong currents, limited visibility, as well as kids that don't know how to dive. So that would be one of the biggest concerns, is even in great conditions, these children don't know how to dive and some of them don't know how to swim, and you're taking them into these conditions that would be difficult for a cave diver that had been through all the proper training.
I suspect the answer is going to be both, but how much would you be concerned they can't swim very well? And how much would you be concerned this is their first time putting a regulator over their face, diving, any of that?
I think both. There's just nothing easy about this at all. With plenty of time, I think it would be a good bit easier to do, but still the conditions are just difficult and the kids just have no experience with this whatsoever.
Lots of folks out there maybe would have done a pleasure dive off a boat in Hawaii or Cancun or something, but few of us have gone through a narrow cave dive situation like this. Explain for even those of us who maybe have scuba dove but have not gone through a cave what the particular challenges of the cave dive are.
So most divers are called open water divers. They can make a direct ascent to the surface at any time. For the cave conditions, you can't necessarily come up. You can't raise your head up and start over. You're in the cave, and so you're rubbing your stomach and bumping your tank or whatever else. And as I understand it, the conditions are tighter than that. So the kids can't even necessarily have tanks on their back. They're taking their tanks off, pushing them ahead, or their assistants or their rescuers are doing that for them.
Yeah, or one of the divers, I think, is actually carrying the tank.
Right, and that just sounds difficult because everything just has to go perfectly right for these kids to come out safe from this.
Luckily, we're already 4 for 4, so that's good news, but we understand there could be rain today. How much would rain be a factor? Obviously, it could increase the water level, but beyond that, in terms of visibility, that type of thing, is rain a big concern?
It is. In addition to just being more water there's going to be current. It's almost like diving in a conveyor belt where the flow is constantly moving at you, and you have to contend with fighting this flow or this current to get through it. So that is a big concern, and extra additional rain, extra flow is going to stir the visibility up. If they have any visibility at all, it's not probably going to make it any better for a lot of storm rain coming in.
Another challenge for novice divers is they just get nervous underwater. They breathe more heavily and they go through their oxygen tank more quickly. We know that there's a concern about how much oxygen they can get in this very long run. They've spent a lot of time getting the tanks in there. Would this be a big concern for you, how quickly these inexperienced divers could chew through their tanks?
Absolutely, and it's also unpredictable. An experienced diver has a pretty good idea of how much air he's going to consume at the depth and how long he can stay down and how long his air is going to take. These kids, you don't really have any idea how fast they're going to breathe, what's going to go wrong for them. It's just a difficult scenario overall, and it's a long way back from the surface. So a normal diver, they can, of course, raise their head, take the regulator out of their mouth and breathe and calm down. This isn't a possibility for these kids right now.
And what's the talk you give to someone who hasn't been underwater before and is doing it for the first time, and you're trying to give them both advice and confidence? I'm sure you've given that talk. What is that talk?
Well, so, of course, the most important rule of scuba diving is to breathe continuously and to never hold your breath. And I tell people that however old you are, if you're 30 years old, 15 years old, you have 15 years of experience that says, I can't breathe underwater. And now you've met me for a day, a week, a month. And I'm saying as soon as you put your head underwater, the most dangerous thing you can do is to hold your breath. But the biggest part of scuba diving that injures people is panic, at least trained scuba divers. As long as you stay calm underwater, you can usually sort through most problems. But if you panic, you no longer think rationally, and that's going to cause some problems for divers.
Yeah, and to that point, there have been reports that the oxygen level in the chamber itself is down to 15%. The normal air is about 21%, and that one of the first things doctors say that can compromise is clear thinking even before they go under the water. That said, as we said before, they're 4 for 4. The first dives seem to go quite well. As you've been reading about this, hearing about this, what has struck you about the mission, about the challenge, and about the way they're going about this?
I think they're setting new ground by doing this. I think they're in a bit of a race against time, or at least a race against the weather, but it's looking pretty good, in my opinion, that they have got 4 out. Now they just need to hurry and get the rest out. I've also seen that they took the night off to refill air tanks, and I'm just curious how good their support is that they do have to take the time off, that they can't just immediately turn over tanks and keep going with this.
Okay, Brent Clevenger, president of Sink or Swim Scuba, joining us by phone from North Carolina tonight. Thanks so much for your insights, Brent.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to be covering this all evening. We hope you stick with us. We understand that this second group of divers is about to go or has just recently gone into the cave. It could be a many-hour process, and we'll be following up with all the details we get as we get them. You're watching CBSN, always on. At this hour, divers are preparing to begin the second phase of their rescue in Thailand. Those rescue divers successfully removed 4 people from the cave. The mission was put on hold, though, for the last half a day because of low oxygen levels in the divers' tanks, or not, at least we should say not enough oxygen tanks along the cave route. The team of divers has to go through miles of tunnels just to reach the boys, much of it underwater, and then, of course, bring them back. Meg Oliver spoke to officials about that dangerous journey.
In Thailand, rescuers are gearing up for the next phase of their effort to free a youth soccer team trapped in a flooded mountain cave. On Sunday, divers escorted 4 of the 12 boys back to the surface, a 2.5-mile journey through a series of dark and flooded tunnels.
You can't make a horror movie that would even compare, and I've been involved in cave rescue for 30 years, and I cannot even think of one that was this complicated.
After the 4 emerged from the cave, they were rushed to the hospital in ambulances. Officials in charge of the operation said they're hoping to bring another group of boys out by Monday or Tuesday.
The good news is that the first phase was successful. They've had an opportunity to show it works. It's still dangerous, but it's much better odds for the remaining kids to come out now because of those initial ones.
Before they attempt another rescue, the dive teams have to refill their oxygen tanks and replenish the supplies along the route inside the cave. After pumping out water for days, experts say the window to rescue the boys is closing, and it is now or never. It is possible that everyone could be rescued within 48 hours. Brooke?
Okay, Meg Oliver, thanks. Joining me now on the phone is Craig Setzer, the chief meteorologist at our Miami station, WFOR. And Craig, Miami is a place that knows about the dangers of flash flooding. We see the situation now in Thailand where heavy rain could rapidly change the conditions there. Can you talk about what that looks like when these heavy rains and flash floods hit?
Yeah, well, the situation is similar in the aspect that Florida, especially South Florida, has a rainy season. Other parts of the country in the southwest U.S., it's called a monsoon season, where the summer rains come in. We see that typically Colorado through Arizona and New Mexico, the summer rains come in. And it happens throughout the northern hemisphere summer, especially at the lower latitudes, such as Thailand, where they get a rainy season and a dry season. And their rainy season similarly lasts almost as long as much of the southern U.S.'s rainy season, typically from May or June through October. And that's not to say that it's going to rain every single day, but the chances of it raining on a day are greater than it's not raining on a day. So when they have these windows here like they're having now in Thailand, they've got to take advantage of it. And the interesting thing about this is, I'm sure you've discussed it as we've been going here, is that water seeks its level. So these caves, which most likely were formed by water flowing, when it rains, the water is going to seek its level and come up, and obviously it's cut them off. And 2.5 miles in, obviously, is a very long journey, and even in dry conditions. So it's especially critical here. But I think they're wise in not waiting until the end of rainy season, because that's a ridiculously long time into October.
Right. And we're toward the beginning of the rainy season, a few weeks in anyway. And is it kind of like a curve? In other words, would we expect that each week as we go into the middle of the rainy season would get a bit worse, or not necessarily?
So it kind of depends. I mean, typically in rainy season, the beginning of rainy season is a little bit wetter, simply because the atmosphere is still cooler higher up in the atmosphere, which results in what we call instability. And so usually the beginning or the first several weeks or even months of rainy season are more prolific. Rain production is quite a bit higher. And then as the atmosphere warms and becomes a little more stable, it tapers off a bit. You still get the occasional showers in a rainy season or a monsoonal pattern, but you don't have the really, really heavy downpours. Now, that's not as true in the southwest U.S., where the monsoon season, which comes on strong there, moisture from the Gulf makes it up through the Rio Grande, and some Pacific moisture comes in and is drawn in from all the warmth of the desert southwest. And then you get these very heavy thunderstorms and flash flooding there. And, of course, in the southwest U.S., you have arroyos, which are like valleys, little valleys where walls of water will literally come down, tearing down through a valley. And then hikers and campers have to be aware of that.
Is there any comparison to be made between preparations and warnings that American officials, or perhaps in other parts of the world, have about potentially dangerous areas during this part of the calendar, and what was or wasn't done in this case in Thailand?
Well, I think, most modern civilizations and countries have some type of warning system. And I think it's a two-sided question, because one is, does the warning go out? But then two, do people who get the warning heed the warning, or are they even paying attention?
Sure.
And because this case is so unusual, I don't even know if I would consider, if I was going caving, if it wasn't raining, or spelunking, if it wasn't already raining, that I would even think of the possibility of this cave becoming isolated and cut off by the water.
Yeah. What else are you thinking of or looking at as you see the weather conditions, the conditions the divers are facing, the condition these kids are in from a weather perspective?
Well, I think the concern would be that if the rains come again, and when they come again, is that there's going to be current. And of course, anytime anybody that does any scuba diving knows how just incredibly strong even a little bit of current can be.
Yeah.
Quickly exhausts you. And so I think that would be a consideration, is current going through the caves and things like that. And I think it's also kind of just a wake-up call that if you are someone who's an avid outdoorsman anywhere in the country or the world for that matter, and you're in a situation where there are heavy rains and things like that, that's a thing you have to be aware of. I mean, we've heard of cases where kids go up storm drains that are rather large storm drains, and then a flash flood or a wall of water will come through, and unfortunately in that case there's a loss of life.
Yeah, absolutely, and it happens all over, all the time. Craig Setzer, thanks so much for your insights tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, much more in our coverage of the situation in Thailand. Rescue efforts still underway there. For now, a short break. We're right back. You're streaming CBSN.
We are following the latest out of Thailand, where 8 boys and their soccer coach are still waiting for rescue from a flooded cave. Officials say 4 of their teammates have been rescued. An international team of skilled divers brought the boys to safety through narrow, submerged passageways. BBC News correspondent Nick Beek has the latest.
Well, this is the main hospital in the Chiang Rai region, and the doctors and nurses here, they were ready and they were waiting for their patients to arrive. And about 8 o'clock this evening, local time, the first of the boys came here. We saw an ambulance race through straight to the main entrance. A short time later, another ambulance as well. We also heard 2 helicopters overhead, and 2 other boys were brought to the doctors and nurses who will now treat them via another entrance at this particular place. Now, we know that medical teams divers who'd been assessing them for the past week or so. There was a doctor in the cave from the moment that they were discovered by those amateur British divers at the start of last week. They decided that the boys were strong enough to try and embark on some sort of rescue attempt, and that's what they've done. Now, no official word from the doctors and nurses here tonight, but we believe, according to people who've been involved in the planning and the execution of this rescue attempt, they believe the boys are doing well considering what they've been through, because when you think about the route they have to take, 11 hours in total for the most experienced divers in the world to try and negotiate their way through some extremely narrow passageways. They're here now for the boys this evening. The hope here in Thailand is that tomorrow more of their fellow football team will be brought out alive and well, and if that is the case, people here will be rejoicing.
Earlier, I spoke with Ed Sorensen, safety officer at the National Speleological Society, about the biggest challenges ahead facing the rescuers.
There's always obstacles in any kind of a rescue operation like this, but they've got almost a perfect storm of everything you could possibly throw at this. So just being in an overhead is incredibly stressful for most people in a water-filled environment. The water in itself is a serious threat for these in this particular instance, because they don't swim, which means they haven't had much time in being submerged in the water. The high flow of flood water, the zero visibility, the not being on scuba. There's just everything you could possibly throw at these kids is here.
And so when we hear about a team of some 90 divers that are assisting in this effort, and a lot of them not being Thai divers, what layer of complexity does that add when you have something as basic as, for instance, communications possibly being a factor here?
Sure. The on-land communications before they have to go in the water is going to be difficult if they don't have somebody that speaks whatever language for the international team. But then communication in the water is extremely difficult. That's one of the things we teach in cave diving, is there's no talking. So everything has to be done usually by hand signals, but in zero visibility, it has to be touch contact. So communications is a really stressful factor.
And, you know, the notion that keeping calm is such a critical element when you talk about swimming, when you talk about being in that kind of environment, when you talk about using scuba apparatus. Can you just give us a sense of how critical that is to ensure that there is, in fact, a safe passage for these boys as they head out, the ability to maintain a sense of calm?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest issues with a lot of divers in cave training, is being able to handle stressful situations, even though they know it's a drill, and these kids, it's not a drill, that these stresses may rise and rise, and if stress isn't managed, it turns to panic, which is usually fatal. So that's why in cave diving, you can't even start your very first entry-level cavern until you're at least 18 years of age.
Because of that incredible amount of stress and pressure being in that environment can involve. Well, let me ask you about the conditions here, because we saw heavy rainfall coming down at the scene shortly after the crews went on break. How do you think that's going to affect the conditions? And give us a sense, if you could, Ed, I know you're obviously not there, but what is that cave environment like, where you are talking about an area there that has been flooded with water and visibility is obviously an issue?
Well, on a system like that, a lot of times it's difficult when it's wet just to navigate in the dry cave portions, and then now you've got it completely water filled, so you can't see what to touch, grab, walk in some cases because of the zero visibility water. So it's a daunting task for these kids, and just the fact that they've gotten so many of them out so far is nothing short of a miracle against all odds.
And you know, time is something that I think is a difficult thing for people to understand, why it takes so long to get the proper sort of preparation in place ahead of one of these extrication processes where you actually are going in with your team of divers and then deciding to take out a number of people. I think a lot of folks will wonder, why does it take so long to prepare for that?
Well, a lot of people aren't taking into consideration that, every cave is different. They're not just a tube, a tunnel to go through. It's falling down boulder piles, chokes, restrictions, cliffs. There's probably loose rocks. There's hazards beyond hazards. And and when you're in zero visibility, you have to follow that line. You let go of that line, you may never get out. And if you're in a very, very, very small restriction, it's stressful, but it's not life-threatening. But you get into a bigger portion, that line may be inches from you, and it might as well be a mile away. So that line is your lifeline.
And in some of these images that we're seeing, you get a sense of just how confined a space is. And obviously they're going to need these air tanks. How does that physically work? Trying to get through some of these narrow crevices when you're relying on these air tanks to allow you to breathe, and you've got these boys that as you've pointed out, may not have experience in the water. What is that like?
Well, cave diving is an extreme sport. It has a lot of inherent risks, but when you get into what we call gear manipulation or bottle off or double bottle off restrictions, because normally cave divers have 2 tanks, not 1. So when you get to a gear manipulation restriction, that's an even more advanced stage of cave diving. You have to be very experienced just to get there. So
what does that mean? Can you explain that, Ed? What are you talking about when you say manipulation like that?
That means removal of gear. So most cave divers are never taught to remove their gear. So to do these kind of restrictions, gear off restrictions, that's an advanced form of cave diving. And I generally don't let people even take my advanced cave side mount course where we do gear manipulation and bottle off really tight restrictions until they have at least 100 minimum safe cave dives. So that's after all their training.
So the fact that they're obviously resorting to this tells you what?
It tells me that they have no choice. That's what, that's what I was saying. It's a miracle that they've gotten this many out already against unsurmountable odds.
And as we continue to watch these images, it is just so compelling, Ed, to think about what must be going through the minds of the boys who have been trapped there for more than 2 weeks, but then those now entrusted with saving them and the kind of pressure they're under as well, and what that physically requires to maintain a sense of mental focus trying to go about this mission.
Well, I mean, this would be unbelievably stressful for an experienced cave diver that's done an advanced type of gear manipulation or removal class, let alone somebody that is not an experienced scuba diver or not scuba certified at all. And these boys, as far as I understand it, never even don't even know how to swim. So if you don't know how to swim, you most likely haven't been submerged for any period of time whatsoever. So it really is miraculous that they've gotten this many out so far.
Just remarkable to think of these efforts underway. Ed Sorensen. Ed, thanks very much for helping us to understand this.
Thanks for having me. Have a nice day.
We're going to have the rest of the day's news after a quick break. Stay with us. You're streaming CBSN. CBS News, always on.
We continue to follow developments out of Thailand, where at this hour, rescue divers are starting the next phase of their rescue mission in their attempt to save those 15 members of a Thai youth soccer team who for more than 2 weeks have been trapped in a cave. 4 members were moved about half a day ago, and at this hour, we understand divers are starting what could be, in the last instance, about an 8-hour mission round trip to get 4 members of that team. It's a very difficult dive, and we want to talk about it with Jake Zwig. He's a former Navy SEAL, joins us now by Skype. Jake, great to see you. If you were getting in the water this morning going to do this, what would be your biggest concern?
You know, at that point, you really don't have any concerns, to be honest with you. You're just focused on the task order at hand. Basically, you've rehearsed this. I mean, they got it down to 10 minutes on the first run from the rehearsal. So you're basically just going through your checklist of things that you got to do in the mission. And you've practiced for contingencies, but you're really not thinking about concerns so much. It's more so about what you got to do to achieve the mission.
And give us a sense of what that checklist looks like.
So the first thing you're going to start with, everybody has their job. I'm sure they've walked through it a number of times. Right before they all go in the cave, they probably walk through it again. Hey, I'm standing here. This is my job. And the guy in charge is going to make sure that everybody knows exactly what they're doing. There's probably some mid-level leaders that are in charge of the spaces, i.e. the places where the soccer team is getting out of the water and walking. You know, they put a bunch of layers of redundancy in there to make sure that everybody's capable of doing what they're supposed to do and to limit the risk to the soccer players and to the rescue team.
Is this the type of thing you ever trained for, rescuing novice divers in this kind of scenario? And how do you train for it?
To be honest with you, you know, I never trained for it, but we train for rescuing down pilots behind enemy lines, and that's pretty much the same deal. You know, very risky, not a lot of help. You know, most of the time the pilots don't get shot down near the line. You know, they get shot down well behind it. And, you know, it's just one of those things. The difference is, though, you know, as a former Navy SEAL, and we got U.S. Navy SEALs on the ground there now, they're some of the world's best at thinking and overcoming adversity. So, you know, I don't care what the mission is, they're going to find a way to win. You've got some of the world's best cave rescue divers there, and you got Thai SEALs there. So you literally have, oh, that's right, and you got Elon Musk on the ground also, some of his crew. You literally got some of the smartest people in the world, and you definitely got the most capable people. So I don't care if they're trying to build a space shuttle to go destroy an asteroid coming into Earth. They're going to find a way to win.
Love the movie shout out. But we're looking at these kids, 11 to 16-year-old kids in not terrific health after more than 2 weeks down in this cave. Not a trained U.S. Air Force pilot who you know, potentially would be rescuing. Does that concern you at all? Or if you're pulling someone through the water, it doesn't really matter what their skill set is?
Well, I mean, it actually helps that they're kids because they're a lot smaller.
Oh, yeah.
At this point, Brooke, they've made an assessment of every person's, you know, kind of psychological makeup. And if you got some really nervous kids, they're probably giving them some sedatives to calm them down a little bit before they pull them through. They may have taken the nervous kids first, to be honest with you, to kind of get them out of the situation and calm everybody else down. But to be honest with you, the fact that they're young and little really helps out because they're not doing much swimming. They're getting pulled along and pushed along down the rope. You know, to be honest with you, it's probably a godsend that they're little people.
You mentioned who you bring through first. It's something I've been thinking about. Would you bring the strongest kids first to make sure the technique works, the weakest kids because you're more worried about how long they can be in the cave? How would you choose who to bring out?
They probably took the 2 strong kids first. In that first wave, I believe they were doing them in 2s. And then that second, once they got those first 2 through, they went to the next 2 that were probably the weakest. The thing you got to understand, though, is they didn't know the outcome when they started, right? They passed them off to somebody else. So they probably had an order determined. You know, there was a doctor in there and 2 Navy SEALs. You know, one thing we're real good at is psychological profiling of people. You know, you got to know who to shoot in a bad situation. So they knew who was going to be the problem kids, and they probably planned it that way so that they could get them out right behind the 2 successful kids.
We've believed, and I mean, everyone has said this is an incredibly difficult mission, and then you see them succeed so well yesterday and quicker than they even anticipated. Does this still strike you as an incredibly dangerous mission, or when you see those 4 young people come out, do you say, okay, I think this may be doable?
Brooke, let's be honest, man. We can't count our chickens before they hatch, right? I mean, we've already lost one very experienced Thai Navy SEAL, you know, so to think that, you know, we're going to get these next 8 people out unscathed without any more fatalities, I'm going to be honest with you, man, it's a stretch. You know, it's still, you know, just as dangerous as climbing Mount Everest. You know, it may be more dangerous than climbing Mount Everest. At least in Mount Everest, you know, you're just worried about falling. There, you're worried about breathing, falling, getting lost, a whole bunch of other factors.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the setting. I'm curious how much experience you have, you know, dealing in these narrow cave situations and what that's like.
So it's interesting. A couple of years back, I was down in the cenotes down in Mexico. You know those underwater caverns?
Mm-hmm.
And I was free diving a hole basically in a cave where I was staying. I was down about 20 feet with no air, and it got real tight, and I had to turn around. And, you know, we all have this little spidey sense when you're doing something that can get you killed. And my spidey sense went to 100, and I managed to get out of the little tight space I was in. But I'm very familiar with being underground in tight spaces, and it's never a nice thing.
How much does the rain concern you in that context?
I mean, I'll be honest with you, that's what got him in trouble in the first place. So at this point, it's just one of the hazards of the job.
Yeah. Okay, Jake Zwick, thanks so much. Really insightful and interesting stuff from a former Navy SEAL who's dealt with situations like this. Jake, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Hey, appreciate it, Brooke. Have a great night.
You too. We're going to take a short break, but when we return, my colleague Elaine Cajano will have the rest of the day's news. Stay with us. You're streaming CBSN. CBS News, always on.
Firefighters are making progress against the wildfires that have destroyed dozens of buildings and caused at least one death in Southern California. The National Weather Service says cooling temperatures will bring some relief, but not until later in the week. Many of the buildings continue to burn, but authorities say the spread of the fire has been stopped. This year's fires have burned more than 2.9 million acres so far. On Saturday, the lack of wind allowed firefighters to bring the holiday fire in Santa Barbara County down to 100 acres with an 80% containment. The state's largest fire, the county fire in Yolo County, has destroyed over 88,000 acres and remains only 55% contained. Mandatory evacuations remain in place. Elsewhere in Boston, the FBI is investigating after a house explosion that sent a man to the hospital with severe injuries to his lower body. The blast left a hole in the first and second floors and blew out walls. The cause is not yet known, and it's not yet known if any of these incidents are related. Here's a look at some of the stories we're covering in our next hour. 4 free, 9 more to go. The latest on the rescue efforts in Thailand. Wildfires in California. Thousands have been displaced as firefighters work to stop the spread. And the president prepares to make his Supreme Court pick. We'll take a look at the issues at stake. You're streaming CBSN.